All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
Oh, hello all. Thank you. I am humbled and gratified by your recorded applause. It is such a pleasure on a Tuesday in America to join you. I am Mark. I'm joined by the wonderful, the resplendent, which is a ding word, and the lovely Kim.
Kim, how are you?
Yes, and Tony, always on the case.
Thanks, Tony.
Yes. Today we will get into the changing face of the Ghislaine Maxwell, Trump, Epstein, DOJ, Congress relationship. There is a lot going on and some shifts beyond just trying to throw MAGA Nation, which was up in arms late last week, off the scent of wanting the full release of these Epstein files. A lot is going on, including a meeting, a bizarre meeting that is scheduled between Ghislaine Maxwell and the number 2 guy at the DOJ. So we'll get into that with due time. In fact, due time is a couple of minutes from now. So those who want that, you'll get it right away. And thank you for noticing. Rain says, nice jacket, Mark. Well, thank you very, very much, Rain. I put it on just to be noticed by you, and now I have been. Jim Shields in on the chat. The chat is live. James, I can't really monitor the chat and chat with you, but Kim sort of handles the chat, and we, in that spirit, encourage you to join in. It's a live chat. It continues for the full 2 hours of the show. We're a 2-hour live show, 2 to 4 in the East, 11 to 1 in the West. Let me just give you a sense of what's happening on the show today, because it is pretty cool that we'll get into the Epstein thing. I've got some Dershowitz stuff that I want to share with you. And of course, I'll give you what I think is, once again, on the part of the Trump administration, no sleight of hand. It's like watching a magician who doesn't know sleight of hand try to pull off a trick. You see everything so obvious, everything so out in the open. I'll share with you some thoughts on that. I do want to mention a couple of other things. We have a pretty big interview with Brittany Coleman coming up bottom of the hour. She is the National Chief Shop Steward for the local, representing the Department of Education employees. So the union that is representing all of these employees that have just been let go from the Department of Education. She is involved with a series of conversations involving their departure and involving their future, and also involving what the Department of Education has done and what we're losing in the shuttering of the Department of Education. It's interesting, and I must tell you, I learned a little bit. I think I knew the broad perspective, but in reading into it, I've learned a little bit about the Department of Education and sort of the real loss that's involved with the departure of all these employees and with the shuttering of that institution. So we will get to that bottom of the hour. And of course, I don't need to tell you, but I will tell you that the brilliant Pulitzer Prize winner, David Cay Johnston, joins us at the top of the second hour. So yeah, a lot of stuff going on. In the more trivial department, Kim,
Yeah.
despite your comments, the Mark Thompson Show socks, which are available in our on our merch site. Here's one of them now. And here's another one now, and they'll be joined together.
I think they're nice socks. I just feel like if you order the Mark Thompson Show socks at getmarkmerch.com, it's saying that you have a lot of faith in yourself.
Yeah. What's wrong with that?
A lot of faith in yourself to know, to really believe, to put your whole heart and your $15 into these socks and know you're not going to lose one of them. That the dryer is not going to suck one away and you'll be left with one lonely Mark Thompson Show sock.
This is, for those who are just joining us, Kim's primary objection to getting any kind of socks that have any sort of special logo or anything special. So it must be really a party at Kim's house
There's
because
all the
everything
same
is
socks.
done with the view toward we're going to
Uniform.
lose it. So we
Yeah.
get nothing of value because you kids can't keep your stuff together.
Okay.
And so, Kim, have faith in yourself.
No.
Have faith in yourself and others. You
And for the
take care of
same-
the things that you want to take care of.
It's for
We
the
all
same
know.
reason we don't buy a white shirt, because we know we're going to stain it. You see?
Dillette says, I love my MT
Oh.
socks. Come on, Dillette. Dillette bought a bunch of merch. And
Okay.
if you haven't yet, knock around the merch site. Kim will, Courtney will come on and talk about it later this week. But what I do want you to know is that there's a bunch of fun merch, and we're working with it. And there's even, quickly tell you this, there's even some like pirate merch going out for the Mark Thompson Show because somebody got some stuff that's not ours, but somebody jacked our logo and all of that. And
What?
so, yeah, so we're actually righting that wrong and making sure that all of that gets taken care of. And they'll be reimbursed from our show. We'll reimburse them for that mistake because we just feel
Wow.
we want them to have a good experience, and we're sending them stuff from our actual merch site. So anyway, if you want to play the merch game, socks were not on the list.
Free socks? No?
I need an MT Show Bible. Yes, you do. My Bible is a whole lot of an easier read than the actual Bible. Yeah, a lot shorter. Really have streamlined it. Yeah, it's very user-friendly, reader-friendly. So isn't yet available for purchase, but you'll love it when it hits. Anyway, it's getmarkmerch.com is the website. I don't think I have any other past business to take up. Do I, Kim? Can I proceed?
You may proceed, sir.
All right.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Smash the like button if you would. It helps us in this world of YouTube. They base a lot of where our show ends up, like what feeds it gets into, on the number of likes. That's why it's sort of a weird thing, I know.
Smash it with your iron rod.
Smash with your iron rod. Smash it like a boss. Definitely helps us in the YouTube universe. So, the Epstein saga continues. And the latest, as you know, is related in part to Congress, in part to Trump, and in part to Jeffrey Epstein's surviving partner, Ghislaine Maxwell. Quickly, the Congress part. Knowing that there's a radioactivity about this Epstein thing, but also knowing that there's great public interest in it and a cry to release the Epstein files, which have no chance of seeing the light of day, it would seem. Congress, wanting to avoid a vote on whether or not the Epstein files should be revealed, they canceled the last day of votes before the summer break. Mike Johnson expressing frustration, and his coalition of Republicans, who he did get together to pass that big bill, that coalition is fracturing around this Jeffrey Epstein question, the question of the files and their release. And so the GOP-controlled House is cutting short its last work week before the summer recess because of a fight over the release of the government files of the late financier and convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. The House scheduled to hold votes on Thursday before lawmakers departed for their 5-week recess, but Republican leaders informed rank-and-file lawmakers today that the final vote of the week would now be a day earlier on Wednesday, the shift in the schedule occurring because of a standoff on the Rules Committee, which decides how legislation comes to the floor. But that Rules Committee has been ground to a halt by this Epstein issue. They are closely aligned with Speaker Mike Johnson, and they want to avoid an embarrassing vote on Epstein, right? As I say, they haven't been able to keep this coalition together. So they're going to recess the committee, not attempt to pass a rule for bills this week. And without a rules, they have to meet again. This is all that parliamentary stuff. They meet. There's a rules session, and they craft a strategy as to whether or not to require the Trump administration to release all the remaining files from the Epstein case. That vote will not happen now. So that rules committee, which again is the committee before you allow bills to come to the floor for debate, they're now just deciding we're adjourning early. So this hugely dominant issue won't become dominant in Congress because Epstein and friends, Johnson and friends are swimming away from the Epstein issue. It's, again, a bit of parliamentary stuff, and it's the bottom line really being served, which is we don't want to talk about Epstein in service to our supreme leader, Donald Trump, who we know wants none of this Epstein stink on him, right? That's what's happening on the congressional side. Meantime, there is an effort to try to make a deal. I think that's what's happening with Ghislaine Maxwell. And so
it seems like they can't get to her fast enough. That everyone's running to Ghislaine. Like, who can get the information from Ghislaine first? Which, by the way, before you go on, I have a bit of breaking news. Ozzy Osbourne has died at the age of 76.
Wow, that is sad. I think he's had health problems for the last couple of years, but I think he did one of his concerts from a chair.
Yeah, like 2 weeks ago. That was the final Black Sabbath show.
Yeah.
He had 5 years ago he announced that he had Parkinson's. I mean, he was very shaky even when they were doing the reality show, so I don't know if that was a surprise to anyone. But yeah, he passed away today. They say he was surrounded by family and it was a peaceful passing. Ozzy Osbourne dead at 76. Yeah. My apologies for interrupting.
No, I'm glad he is an important cultural figure. So there's that. And it's interesting, just as an aside, Epstein's become this interesting cultural figure. He clearly was involved in heinous acts of human trafficking.
Mm-hmm.
But he's not the most important thing going on in America or the world, as I've stated before. Because he is the Epstein case, the Epstein problem is so politically relevant, and it so rocks the Trump boat, that vaults it to a place where it demands public attention. And that's a little bit of why there is a congressional vote, or was to have been, on getting that information out. So with no congressional vote on the release of the Epstein files, because Mike Johnson is finding a way around there being any vote before the recess for the summer. They recess after this week. They now are talking to Ghislaine Maxwell, and they're talking to Ghislaine Maxwell in a way that is somewhat unprecedented. The Deputy Attorney General is going to meet with Ghislaine Maxwell, who is serving 20 years. Why the Deputy Attorney General would meet with Ghislaine Maxwell is, I think, pretty easy arithmetic. The Deputy Attorney General, does anybody know what Todd Blanche, who did he used to represent? Todd Blanche used to represent Donald Trump.
Oh.
That's right. So Donald Trump's former personal attorney, now Deputy Attorney General, is going to meet with Ghislaine Maxwell. This is odd on its face. We'll talk to David Cay Johnston about it. But what are they trying to get from Ghislaine Maxwell? At minimum, they want to know what she knows and what her disposition is toward speaking. But let's face it, they already know what she knows. She knows everything. So What they're really doing, I'd suggest, is likely stopping the bleeding ahead of time.
Pardon for your silence?
Right. What deal might we be able to make with you so we can get past this whole ugly mess? You're serving too long a time. Let's face it. We all know it. And I'm here to right that wrong. I, as Todd Blanche, representing the DOJ. Here's the news as it broke today, and then I'll give you a little bit of Alan Dershowitz on this as well. Go ahead, Tony.
Hi, I'm Diane Macedo. We have breaking news. An oversight committee just approved a motion to subpoena Ghislaine Maxwell to testify before Congress. It comes as Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche says he expects to meet with Maxwell in the coming days. Maxwell was convicted of conspiring with and aiding Jeffrey Epstein in his sexual abuse of underage girls and is currently in prison. ABC's Justice Department reporter Alex Mallon has more. So we also have Jay O'Brien on Capitol Hill following this for us. So Jay, I want to start with you since this just happened. What's the latest there, and what are lawmakers really calling for here?
Yeah, this motion to subpoena Ghislaine Maxwell was approved in a subcommittee of the House Oversight Committee. It was brought forward by Tim Burchett, and it got the Republicans on that panel's support. And so now it advances to Chairman James Comer, who's the chair of the overall House Oversight Committee. It tries to force Comer to subpoena Ghislaine Maxwell, but ultimately it looks like the decision will still rest with James Comer as to whether or not he wants to go along with this motion that was approved in, again, that subcommittee of his broader House Oversight Committee. But it comes as Jeffrey Epstein from beyond the grave is really tying up the processes of the House of Representatives here. The House Rules Committee, which is a crucial final stop on legislation before it heads to the House floor, had to cancel their meeting last night, and they're not going to meet for the rest of the week because Republicans on that panel didn't want to have to take tough votes that Democrats were bringing forward on an Epstein-related amendment that would release the DOJ records on this case and on Jeffrey Epstein in general.
We talked about that. Okay, thank you. That was the vote that I talked about, the fact that the vote won't happen to release those Epstein files. But there you see it. There is a congressional effort to subpoena Ghislaine Maxwell for a subcommittee, and there is a, it would seem, somewhat concurrent effort to meet with her. That is on the part of Todd Blanche, the former Trump attorney, who is now Deputy Attorney General in the DOJ. Go ahead, Tony. Give me the second cut from that ABC breaking news story. This just happened moments ago.
So, Alex, what's Blanche hoping to accomplish with his meeting with Ghislaine Maxwell?
Yeah, I mean, Diane, this is just the latest unusual turn in how the department is handling the fallout over its decision not to release any more Epstein files. I mean, I've never even heard of the idea of a deputy attorney general going to visit a convicted sex trafficker in prison to potentially discuss what information she might have more than what the department already has in its holdings. And also making this all the more unusual is that Todd Blanche previously served as President Trump's personal defense attorney. And the outrage, obviously, from Democrats over this whole handling of the Epstein files and the withholding of them is that they accuse the administration of potentially covering up President Trump's personal relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. So the fact that the Deputy Attorney General is now stepping in, given all this vocal attention being put towards this by Congress, including House Republicans and Senate Republicans, and that they're going to try and now step into this process of potentially getting Ghislaine Maxwell to talk on the record about what she knew about Epstein and potential other co-conspirators or associates that she may be able to implicate. I mean, the difference here is that this meeting that Todd Blanche is trying to arrange will be behind closed doors, potentially in the Federal Correctional Institution where she's staying in Tallahassee, Florida. The difference with congressional testimony would be that would be out in the public for all of Americans to hear what she has to say. And obviously, Ghislaine Maxwell has a real incentive to try and tell this administration what it wants to hear here versus, you know, what the public might have just an interest in knowing, because the Justice Department controls whether she continues to serve out a 20-year prison sentence in connection with the heinous crimes that she was convicted for.
Thank you. That's exactly what we were saying, and very well put.
Alan Dershowitz calls her the Rosetta Stone of Epstein and says she knows everything. But
well, I'm sure she does know everything. But the point of meeting with her, if you're Todd Blanche, behind closed doors, again, I'm so glad that that was emphasized in that report, is that you can make whatever deal you want with her. You can dry clean her coming comments and her public statements so that before she goes to the subcommittee, you already know what she's going to say. Deal is made, cake is baked, we'll get you reduction in sentence, full pardon, whatever it might be. I mean, I suspect it won't be a full pardon, but I think a sentence reduction probably is in the offing. I mean, a closed-door meeting with Ghislaine Maxwell and Todd Blanche, who, again, I'll remind you, used to be Trump's personal attorney. There is only one agenda item, and it is, how can we make sure that what you say is what we want to hear?
But if Trump is, I'm sorry, just a quick question for you. If Trump is already on the hot seat for not releasing files, and all the conspiracy theorists are clamoring for the files, and the more he doesn't release things, the more guilty perhaps it makes him look, then won't a closed door meeting where he tries to button up and close her mouth, wouldn't that make him even look more guilty, and
well,
that make people even more suspicious?
You know, of course, on some level, but on another level, he can say, hey, look, we had her testify in the open before Congress. What do you want?
Right.
They can say, well, we want the files. Well, there are too many people who will be damaged with the release of those files. She's given you the pertinent information from those files. I mean, it gives him, Trump, some high ground, which is what they're looking for. They're looking to put this case to bed. So they want to dry clean what she's going to say so it doesn't implicate Trump, but it nevertheless has some nasty associated with it. And then they want to move on. And they can do that, I think, in this series of ways, including the meeting with Ghislaine behind closed doors and then the subcommittee, potentially the subcommittee testimony. True conspiracy believers will never buy it. Yeah, but I think Trump's trying to do something, and oh my God, there was no file. It turns out it's all incredible misunderstanding. That line, the Pam Bondi line, that ain't flying. So they need something else. Here is a little bit of what Kim is talking about, Dershowitz, and the reference to the fact that there are key bits of testimony that would help this in terms of clarity from Ghislaine Maxwell.
Yes, she should be potentially offered congressional immunity to go and testify. Do you think that would happen? And what kind of information would she have that we haven't seen?
She knows everything. She is the Rosetta Stone. She knows everything. She arranged every single trip with everybody. She knows everything. And if she were just given use immunity, she could be compelled to testify. I'm told that she actually would be willing to testify, and there'd be no reason for her to withhold any information. So I don't see any negative in giving her the kind of use immunity that would compel her to testify. So she ought to be summoned in front of a congressional committee.
So that's one thing. He's saying, yeah, get her in front of the subcommittee. Here is a little bit more on how much she knew, because she was really Epstein's right-hand person.
The key to this case is Ghislaine Maxwell, and that Congress should give her some form of use immunity to get her to talk, because you said she has all the secrets. My question to you is, what's in it for her to do that if all she gets is use immunity? What about cutting her a deal with the sentence she currently has?
Well, that should be done. The sentence she currently has is not a sentence that was really imposed on her. It was imposed on the dead Jeffrey Epstein. You don't get 20 years for being an assistant or a secretary, even if there were serious crimes. And she had nothing to do with any alleged trafficking. In any event, she should have her sentence commuted. She should be given total immunity, called before Congress, and she'll tell everything. She knows everything. She made all the reservations. When I had to fly down to represent him in front of the Palm Beach District Attorney's office or in front of the U.S. Attorney's office, she's the one who made the arrangements. She knows who was on his plane. She knows who was innocent. If there were any guilty people, she knows who they are. And if you gave her complete immunity and let her out of prison and made a deal with her, this would solve the problem forever.
By the way, this is an important point. Well, Dershowitz, another crooked attorney, says, Vicky, somebody was saying she was more than an assistant. Tammy, I said, that's true. She was more than an assistant. She was more than just a logistics person. If you read the testimony and the depositions that you can read, the victim testimonies, and there's been civil action in all of this, you can read the statements of many of these Epstein victims who brought cases forward. You see that Ghislaine Maxwell was more than just an assistant. She was more than just somebody keeping track of who was coming and going and setting up trips. She actively, again, based on their testimony, she actively participated in these acts of sexual abuse. So the administration is so shady, we will never know the truth, says Soul Seeker. I believe the pictures and videos, that's enough for me. Yeah. Anyway, that's the latest. And I think it, again, big news that the administration is sending their guy, Todd Blanche, again, former Trump attorney, to meet with Ghislaine Maxwell behind closed doors to make some kind of plan. I mean, he doesn't need to meet with Ghislaine Maxwell to know what Ghislaine Maxwell knows. He knows what Ghislaine Maxwell knows. He's going to meet with her to figure out what Ghislaine Maxwell can say to help the administration and his boss, Donald Trump. And in a reciprocal way, she can accrue some benefit as a result of saying what they want. There's no question, but that is what they will be discussing. I'm going to move on unless there are any outstanding questions. Comments? I have a distinguished guest waiting. Smash the like button if you would. That's
Smash it with your iron rod.
In the YouTube universe, that's important to the algorithm. We'll discuss this more with David Cay Johnston as we continue. Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
It is, it's a sad fact that the Department of Education has been dismantled. And the National Chief Shop Steward for the local representing the Department of Education employees who were discharged in one big messy sweep. Brittany Coleman is talking a bit about the Department of Education and also the way this whole thing was handled. And I'm really anxious to speak with her now. How about it? A warm Mark Thompson Show welcome for Brittany Coleman, everyone, who went to school right down the street from where I went to school. I went to Colgate. You went to Cornell, right?
I did.
I love that. I love that. That Central New York winter, that will, yeah, that will definitely test you. Yeah. So look, the everything with the Department of Education mess struck me as just that. So very messy. Can you tell us what happened? It looked to me like everything happened so quickly. There was a court case that tried to, it seemed, act as something of an impediment to this agenda item of erasing the Department of Education, but ultimately that court case wasn't successful. Speak to me about what happened at the Department of Education, please.
Absolutely. So what happened, just to take a little back, just to kind of set the scene, was on March 11th, a number of us received notices saying that we were part of a reduction in force. And at the same time, we lost, we had limited systems access, which means that we couldn't send internal emails, we couldn't contact anybody that we were interacting with unless they worked at the Department of Education. So it basically just prohibited us from doing our work. And then a lot of us had to turn in our laptops. So we were waiting for June 9th, which was the date that we were supposed to be let go in this reduction in force. But there was the court case, as you mentioned, that came out of the district court in Massachusetts that basically stopped the agency from engaging in this reduction in force or this layoff. So then the case got appealed by the administration to the First Circuit. The First Circuit actually left the injunction in place, which meant we were still employed. We're not able to do our jobs. We were at least still employed. Unfortunately, what happened last week at the Supreme Court is that they made the decision to stop that injunction and to tell the agency to go ahead with the removing us from employment. And it's just been really unfortunate because we do believe the law was on our side, but the Supreme Court made the decision it did. And unfortunately, it is enabling what we argue is an illegal reduction in force to happen. And my colleagues who are in every other department within the Department of Education who are impacted by this layoff, except for those in OCR, the Office for Civil Rights, their last day is going to be August 1st. So that means we've not only been able to not provide those services all this time, we now have people who are going to lose their ability to provide for their families. And it just means that we've lost even a greater ability to provide services to the American public.
Yeah, I'm most concerned with the second. I mean, very concerned always when people lose jobs and are unable to provide for their families. Don't get me wrong, but I mean, from a public policy standpoint, I'm really concerned about the damage it does to the country. And so, and by the way, Tony, can you help her audio a little bit? Can you pump it up, or what's the problem, please? Is there? I'm just
that's having just internet. It's just what
it's just in and out. Okay,
I can't do much about it.
Okay, thank you. That's Tony, Brittany, which is Tony. We
Thanks, Tony.
Yeah, once in a while he comes in to kind of try to help out technically. In this case, it is what it is. But I'm concerned about the Department of Education going away. I guess that's what I'm saying. So concerned about everybody who lost their job. And of course, that's your world. You know, you're a union head and you're supposed to protect those who are part of the union, but you're also part of this group that was performing important services for America through the Department of Education. Can you speak to what those services are and what's been lost?
Absolutely. So I speak for myself in the Office for Civil Rights, where in our office, we receive free complaints that are filed by people within, the communities all over the country. And a lot of times it's parents who are concerned that their children are being discriminated against because of a disability or because of their sex. Maybe they're not having the same opportunities as a woman in athletics as opposed to a man, or based on race or national origin. So in our office, we investigate those complaints to determine whether or not there was a violation of the student civil rights. And, we have that jurisdiction because these entities receive federal dollars. And that leads me to federal student aid, which is our biggest component within the Department of Education, where you get your financial aid from. That's your Pell Grants, that's your work study, that's your student loans. And not only do they provide those dollars, but they also provide accountability. Again, like the Office for Civil Rights, we're making sure that when those dollars go to those schools, that they're complying with the laws that we're supposed to enforce. We
Just
have
because
the
you mentioned
Institute
the
of Education.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, no, absolutely. And then just another data aspect that I think a lot of people aren't aware of, the Institute of Education Sciences. Like, we have a data arm that actually goes in and looks at data across the country to see, what educational outcomes are looking like. And it's not us telling schools what they're doing and how to educate people. It is just us simply looking at the data and just saying, hey, this is, based on what you're doing, this is what's happening. So you may want to consider doing something else.
There was funding for summer schools, and there is funding for higher education. You noted it here just in the last second or two. And I wonder what happens with that. What happens with these programs that are also geared toward kids who have physical limitations? And in other words, with the elimination of the Department of Education and the support structure that was built in, what happened with the civil rights questions that you've articulated? What happens now? Is there any appeal to any government institution, local institution? What do parents do?
Sure. So I'll just start with the overall question is, what happens if the Department of Education no longer exists? We lose that accountability for where these dollars go. And you're also losing the dollars themselves. Unfortunately, we saw recently that the Secretary of our agency is withholding $6 billion in funding for just after school programs, for other things that are staff that school districts need in order to provide those after school programs or just to plan for their school years. So we're looking at a loss of funding. We're also looking at a loss of accountability in enforcing those laws. If our agency goes away, then there's no one to enforce that. There are no similar or like-minded mechanisms in the states to enforce federal law, because that's the federal government's jurisdiction. And the school districts can set their curriculums, but it's our job to make sure that they are not violating federal law.
And the Trump administration has said that they are pulling back that $6 billion that you talk about because of a review that suggests that it serves a left-wing radical agenda. Those are their words. And so they've made this a highly partisan political type thing. Is there an aspect of the Department of Education and many of these programs to which you've referred, funding programs, tuition programs, Pell Grants, et cetera, that you think smacks of politics? I would imagine you're going to say no, but it does seem to me that there's an objective reality as to a need here, and there isn't a left-wing agenda necessarily being serviced and being served.
Absolutely. I mean, well, we're political. It doesn't matter us, generally who's in the White House, as long as we're able to do our job. And that's to make sure that schools get the funding that they need, so students get the funding that they need for special education, after school programs, putting mental health professionals in schools. These are things that we provide funding for, but we're seeing funding getting cut. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether you're in a red state or a blue state or purple state. It doesn't matter who your representatives are. Everyone's getting hit by this. There has not been any discrimination on that. Like, everyone's getting hit. It's going to impact everyone from cities to suburbs to rural areas. And that's the hard part about it. I think that's something that people are missing. This isn't, everyone's going to be hurt.
What is the future? What's going to happen? These employees have been let go, and how does this game out?
Well, I can't say for certain what the agency's intentions are, but we can just look at what we're seeing so far. So right now we're having staff that's likely going to get let go on August 1st. The agency has not made any intent on backfilling those positions. We were already short-staffed anyway, so now there's going to be even less people to do all the work that we have to do. I can say in OCR, we get thousands of cases every year, and the cases increase. So that's less people processing those cases, because we went from 12 regional offices down to 5. That's a huge loss in just investigators in that unit alone. And unfortunately, the end game appears to be to dismantle the U.S. Department of Education, despite that being a congressional power. That's what it seems to be, because we're already seeing that agreements are being signed to send out work to other agencies. They're laying off people, and grants are being cut. And there seems to be a definite interest in sending functions that normally reside within the federal government back to the states.
I mean, I see more and more about the Department of Education being just one of the government support structures associated with this new administration, and an agenda to dismantle many of the things that are associated with advocacy on the part of many who need it. Those who are underserved, those who are challenged in all these ways. That's why it's a civil rights issue. That's why the Department of Education is designed to help kids who have a right to get an education. And so this is a lamentable situation, such that I'm really concerned about what it means for the future, because I don't know that you can put Humpty Dumpty back together again, assuming this administration comes and goes. And I don't know that that's a huge assumption that for another day, but I don't know how it as I say, rights itself in future administrations, because it's a lot to try to put back together.
Absolutely. I definitely agree. I mean, we're losing institutional knowledge as we speak by losing the employees that we're about to lose. And just for the students that are being impacted, it's like we can't go back in time and fix the harm that they're experiencing. We can't undo that. Like, if a student's not getting services that they need for additional time on a test, we cannot go back in time and fix that issue and right that wrong. And that's the most disconcerting part, is just knowing that students are getting harmed or not getting clear financial aid information to go on to higher education or anything. So I'm inclined to agree, which is why I encourage everyone to reach out to their representatives to stop this madness and to save our agency.
Yeah, great great call to do just that, make some noise. Brittany Coleman, thank you. A pleasure to meet you. And you have an unenviable job, especially given this environment at the moment. But we all appreciate you doing it. So thank you for sharing some time with us.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you. Brittany Coleman. Good stuff.
The Mark Thompson Show.
It was great. I loved it.
How would you handle this? We could try ignoring it, sir.
Morning.
You cannot say you love your country.
Where are my weed smokers at?
Stay at home and get baked.
What up, everybody? I know. Can't get enough Epstein. Don't worry. We'll bring up more Epstein. Talk to David Cay Johnston, the Pulitzer Prize winner, about the latest moves. It is a chess game of politics. The Epstein story is important from the standpoint of politics, the future of this presidency, how encumbered it becomes by a public relations disaster. This is all why it's important. But it isn't really important when you stack it up against the reputational harm I'm talking about, stacking it up against what's happening in this country. And there is a real effort to redouble efforts in cities nationwide, sanctuary cities, and others. There's a real effort to continue an aggressive move toward getting those who are undocumented out of this country. It's pretty incredible, Kim. When I look at the latest moves and you look at the latest budget, you see how there really is it's no holds barred. In fact, I'm where is my story on this? Those poor kids who their dad is in. Well, I'll start with the border czar saying, the border czar. God, just the vernacular, just the vocabulary is just so offensive. It's all just anyway. Trump's borders are to target sanctuary cities. We're going to flood the zone, he says. And this guy is like the chief immigration thug.
Is that Tom Homan?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They are targeting sanctuary cities in the next phase of their deportation drive. They label them sanctuaries for criminals. Tom Homan, Donald Trump's hardline border czar, vowed to, quote, flood the zone with immigration customs enforcement agents in an all-out bid to overcome the lack of cooperation that he says the government is facing from Democrat-run municipalities. This all in ICE's quest to arrest and detain undocumented people. His pledge followed the arrest of 2 undocumented men from the Dominican Republic after I guess these are Customs and Border Protection officers who got shot, right? Was it 1 or 2?
Yeah,
I think
I want to say 1. Yeah.
1, yeah.
I mean, not that it's any, less
no, just for the sake of
horrible.
accuracy.
Yeah.
No, again. Yeah. It happened, it was a robbery attempt in New York on Saturday night. New York is one of the self-designated sanctuary cities across the country, and this is where mayors and local councils have prevented law officers from collaborating with ICE and this mass deportation scheme. So anyway, Homan, who has threatened to arrest mayors if they impede ICE's arrest efforts, said without evidence, okay, every sanctuary city is unsafe. Sanctuary cities are sanctuaries for criminals, and President Trump's not going to tolerate it, he said. I'm going to work very hard to keep President Trump's promise and his commitment several weeks ago that sanctuary cities are now our priority, and we're going to flood the zone. What we're going to do, this is a continuation of his quote, is deploy more agents in New York City to look for that bad guy so sanctuary cities get exactly what they don't want. More agents in the community and more agents in the work site. So basically what they're saying is this one guy who shot that one guy, we're going to be bringing down the entire strength of the federal government on New York City to shake that city until that one guy falls out.
Wow.
But on the way to that, we'll wrap up a lot of other people. If
And
we
now
can't,
they have the funding now to do it too.
and the quote continues, if we can't arrest that bad guy in the safety and security of the county jail, we'll arrest him in the community. And when we arrest him in the community, if he's with others that are in the country illegally, they're coming too. This was at a news conference fronted by Kristi Noem. And apparently this agent was off duty. He was sitting with a woman when he was reportedly approached by two men on a scooter. It was right around midnight. He was not in uniform. Cops say there was no indication that he was targeted because of his occupation, but nonetheless, he was shot, and he was later taken into a suspect was taken into custody with gunshot wounds, and Noem claimed the episode was a direct result of the sanctuary city policy adopted by New York Mayor Eric Adams, as well as the approach to border security adopted during Joe Biden's presidency. So the mess of immigration is a bigger and bigger mess every day. And I think the spin associated with this is what I might point to, because they will take any incident and use it as a justification for an increase in ICE presence, a more aggressive ICE strategy, and all of that continues. Deployment of all 700 active duty Marines to LA is ending. State and city officials calling the presence of Marines provocative during the protests against the ICE raids in the city. And now the Pentagon is saying that the entire deployment of 700 active duty U.S. Marines is over. The redeployment of the Marines comes a week after 2,000 National Guard troops were withdrawn from L.A. And that still leaves 2,000 troops in L.A., doesn't it, Kim? I think there are 2,000 left. There were 4,000 initially.
National Guard troops, right. The
Right.
Marines are being pulled out, but the National Guard remains for now.
Yeah, half the National Guard crew remains. The other half has been sent home. And as I mentioned on the show yesterday, I think it was, they're bored. They're absolutely bored. I think it's an affront to them. I'm thinking of the Marines and National Guard guys who just go there every day and stand around, do nothing. And they do nothing because there's nothing going on. It's not like they do nothing at an outpost in Afghanistan, the way there is a lot of downtime, but you know that there's really a threat. They are doing a lot of nothing in a city where there's nothing going on and nothing is going to be going on. It really is a gross mismanagement of the military. These are people with careers. The National Guard is populated by those who are going to school, who have careers. It's insulting to be used as a theatrical prop. So on behalf of those guys who are in LA, National Guardsmen now left, I say, let them go home. Call them back if they're needed, but they are not needed now, and it continues to be just theater. Parents at a preschool in a Portland suburb are reeling from an immigration raid there. Apparently, immigration officers arrested a father in front of the school during the morning drop-off. They broke his car window to detain him in front of children, families, and staffers. This is where I consider the methodology which is imposed by ICE to be so ridiculous, so over the top. I mean, are these ICE agents just glorified nightclub bouncers? Who are these people? Are they just thugs in waiting, masked? They go in, they break the glass in front of all these other kids. There's no sense of propriety, of ripple effect. There's no strategy here. You're getting it from the top. You heard the comments of Homan as I was repeating them. I feel like a daycare, which is where young children are taken care of should be a safe place, said one of the mothers who dropped her daughter off at the Montessori in Oregon. Not only is it traumatizing for the family, it's traumatizing for all the other children as well, she said. The 38-year-old chiropractor and citizen of Iran was initially pulled over by Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, while driving his child to the school Tuesday. After asking if he could drop off the child first, he continued driving and called his wife to tell her what happened. According to his wife, she had concerns for her and her young child. She rushed to the school, took their child from the car, and brought him inside. He stayed in the vehicle in the parking lot. Again, took the child from the car and brought the child inside.
Mm-hmm.
The father stayed in the vehicle in the parking lot, asked if he could move somewhere not on school grounds out of consideration for the children and families. The father, who is getting arrested by ICE, has more concern for the children and families than the ICE officers do.
Oh, because he may be an immigrant, but this is his community now. These are his people, and his friends of his children, and the parents that you make, friends that you make when your kids go to school. Yeah.
He pulled out of the lot and onto the street and began to open the car door to step out. That's when agents broke the window and took him into custody. Kelly Burns, who has 2 children attending the preschool, said that her husband was there and heard the glass shatter. More than anything, we want to express how unnecessarily violent and inhumane this was, she said. Everyone felt helpless. Everyone was scared. Why was he detained? Violent criminal? Violent assault record? Wanted by the cops? No. He overstayed his visa. And even that is in dispute. So, immigration officials ramping up all of these arrests across the country since May, and it's only going to get worse. Stories like this are everywhere. And again, you know, it's a weird place I find myself in because I'm a great believer in the good people who do law enforcement. You need law enforcement. Mm-hmm. But these ICE raids and these people who wear the ICE uniform now, I think there has to be some shame associated with it. I really do. And I think you can look to the top of that agency to see where that shame should come from. The people who are running ICE and even DHS, Kristi Noem, now supercharged with this budget. I mean, it's an abomination. It's an embarrassment. It's shameful. So, again, the border, we all agreed. It was not managed well. It was not handled well. There were issues at the border that were indisputable. But now this is another facet of immigration. It has nothing to do with the border per se. And rounding up all of these people who aren't violent criminals. They're not guilty of any kind of violent assault. They're at Lowe's, Home Depot, high school graduations, dropping off their kid at school. Come on, man. Really? But you're going to see more of it. You're going to see more of it. So, that's it for immigration for the moment. And I'm glad to see that the Marines are leaving LA. But I wish we could have some moderation in what is a ridiculously aggressive policy when it comes to immigration. But we are where we are. So,
The Mark Thompson Show.
David Cay Johnston awaits us, and in minutes, is David here already? Oh, he is. Okay,
he just
good.
popped in. Yeah.
Yeah. I will tell you that the just as David gets settled, the offensive extreme to which this administration goes to distract was played out with the release, not of the Epstein files, not of anything pertinent, nothing to address the drumbeat of demand to know with the full transparency promised what's in the Epstein files. No, The Martin Luther King documents were released, 200,000 pages of surveillance records, despite the objection from Martin Luther King's family. This is stuff we already knew, the tawdry stuff, the FBI surveillance notes. It was documented in many ways, but there was a documentary, I think, 2 years ago that just gave you the creeps. You realize that they were after Martin Luther King in so many ways and surveilling him for no real reason associated with any sort of substantive suspicion of any kind. And so what they do is they document all these untoward acts. And so releasing this is something they think of red meat to their base, and it will create a kind of distraction, the sort of distraction that Trump gets when he says the commanders in Washington, the football team, should change their name back to the Redskins. I mean, he's just throwing stuff up there to forget about the Epstein thing, but the MLK thing, it's just offensive. And I think it just falls into that category of an attempted distraction, maybe successful on some level, but the drumbeat for Epstein files and the release continues. So that was the latest.
The Mark Thompson Show.
He's a Pulitzer Prize winner, and he is now a distinguished professor at Rochester Institute of Technology, the co-founder of DCReport.org, and the multiple best-selling author. No one knows Trump like this guy, David Cay Johnston, everyone.
Hello, Mark.
Hello, sir. Well, you know, I haven't really seen, you probably have, but it's interesting to watch Trump flail a bit as this Epstein thing has blown up. And I haven't really seen him in a flailing that has continued this many consecutive days as we have seen now.
Oh, he's got a real tiger by the tail here. Trump was so clear that he would release these files. We now know why he doesn't want to do so. The FBI took apparently more than 1,000 personnel off of duties like counterterrorism, espionage, white-collar fraud, and assigned them to go through the Epstein file documents, hundreds of thousands of pages. In fact, there's been one reference by one of the people who was connected with prosecuting the case that there are more than 1 million pages of information to flag everything that mentioned Trump by name. Now, Donald Trump can survive politically a lot of things. He can survive his utter incompetence. He can survive lying every day of the week. He can survive making up the most ridiculous accusations and praise. For example, thanking the National Guard for stopping violence in Los Angeles when they hadn't even been activated. But I don't think he can survive evidence that he's a serial child rapist. And what matters here now is keeping this story alive. And that means finding new angles and things to pursue. So there is out on the internet the interview with the young woman who says when she was 13 that she was instructed to disrobe and to give Donald a hand job, and then told she had to wear a glove, presumably a soft furry glove, and that there was another girl in the room, and that they were 12 and 13 years old. There are about 24 women who've made serious allegations against Trump, and we have the judicial finding in the E. Jean Carroll case, which he is now trying to get out of by saying, well, I said that as president of the United States, therefore I'm immune from any liability. And it is astonishing that the Republicans, who have for 50 years called, more than 55 years now, 56 years, call themselves the party of law and order, that they are unwilling to look at this. And I think the obvious conclusion is they're unwilling to look at it because they know what it will turn up. So let's imagine that some of this information gets out. Somebody leaks FBI 302s. That's the report, a summary report filed by FBI agents, or some other piece of documentation leaks out. I don't think Donald can survive that. He'll attack it. He'll say it's fake. He'll claim, as he did with the Wall Street Journal, that the Jeffrey Epstein letter is fake. So what needs to happen here is that journalists, people who feed information to journalists, need to keep finding new angles and new ways to keep this alive, because you're already seeing some of the people who criticize Trump, who are Republicans, start to back away and say, well, I went too far. I shouldn't have insisted on that. I'm sure the president has his reasons. That needs to be tamped down and directly questioned at every opportunity. But there is plenty of smoke there. Let's be clear. There's no fire. We don't have any solid absolute proof, but there are just huge billowing black smoke that Donald Trump is not just a child rapist. He is a serial child rapist, that it was a normal part of his life. And the coded language in the letter to Jeffrey Epstein on his 50th birthday, enigma. Now, what word, if you wanted a code word, might you describe a 12 or 13-year-old virgin? Enigma sounds like a pretty good word to me, because it's a mystery who you're going to turn out to be. And the woman in particular, whose video is online, says that she should be happy that it was Donald Trump who took her virginity, not some incompetent 14-year-old boy. Fits perfectly Donald's view of the world and the way he speaks about things like this. And of course, we have the Donald himself saying that he told the 10-year-old girl, in 10 years, I'm going to be dating you.
Right.
Plus things he said on the Howard Stern show. I mean, remarkable things on the Howard Stern show that you could dismiss at one time as tasteless braggadocio, but in the context of all this other evidence. And imagine, by the way, if all this was evidence against Barack Obama.
Oh.
What would the Republicans be saying here?
So Trump, alongside others, Dershowitz was an Epstein attorney. He was also a Trump attorney. Bill Clinton, Bill Gates. I mean, you had this constellation of very powerful people who were all with Epstein repeatedly. Right? Trump traveled frequently with Epstein, it seems. I mean, if you look at the flight manifests, which I've seen written about, it looks like there are enough trips with Epstein to these various places where Epstein had residences that there's a guilt by association that I'm sure Trump already feels puts a lot of stink on him, right?
Well, I'm not sure Donald would feel it puts stink on him, but he would be scared of it, that's for sure, and troubled by it. But, we don't need to just look at the sex angle here. Let's look for a moment at Jeffrey Epstein and his business. Jeffrey Epstein was a teacher at a private school, got fired after being hired by Bill Barr, the former Attorney General's father. He briefly works on Wall Street, undistinguished career. And suddenly he's managing a lot of money for Leslie Wexner, the Ohio multi-billionaire who started Victoria's Secret and ran various other retail clothing enterprises. I'd like to see the trading records for Jeffrey Epstein's investments of Leslie Wexner's money. I'd like to see the distributions that were made to Leslie Wexner. And let me be clear, my expectation is there are few trading records and they don't show any spectacular returns, and probably no distributions or very minor ones to Leslie Wexner. Where I'm going here is that I think it's clear that Epstein's business was extortion. He compromised people and then he was able to extort them. And the way to get at that is follow the money. And so why not release the trading records? Now, I'm hoping that some members of Congress and journalists, start asking that question. Well, if you're uncomfortable with some of these records, what about the trading records, the financial records of Jeffrey Epstein? I mean, he's dead. What's the issue here? You're worried about Leslie Wexner's privacy here in terms of the investments? And it's crucial that this story not go away. And that means, in journalism terms, from 60 years of doing this almost, you got to keep finding new angles and new issues to raise.
Well, the Wall Street Journal, they certainly weren't going to let the story die. They, as you say, they had that expose with the birthday card and that you've quoted. And what does Trump do? He sues them. I mean, he makes up, first of all, this, it's a case involving defamatory speech, and he makes up the number of 20 billion. I guess he just sues everybody. Don't you have to show, David, you know this stuff so well, you have to show damages in a defamation case, right?
At the end of the day, you have to show damages, but when you make your demand, you can put any number you want there, no matter how ridiculous.
So he's doing that. He's barred the Wall Street Journal, as you know, from coverage. That is to say, there'll be no Wall Street Journal correspondent involved in direct White House coverage. So he's doing that, and other news organizations. Just because you mentioned other news organizations, I'm sure on some level they're concerned that they might end up in the same tank.
Yeah, maybe. Trump's overplaying his hand here, I think. First of all, you will not see this suit go very far, because the Wall Street Journal, if the suit goes forward, has what's called discovery rights. It's the same reason Donald has threatened me more times than I can recall, only once to my face, but usually on the phone, that he's going to sue me. He's going to, see my children. Of course, they're all grown now, but my children will be homeless. But he never did, because he knew that I would get the opportunity to question him under oath, or lawyers working for me would. And the one time he did pursue a case against my former colleague, Timothy O'Brien, for his excellent book on Trump, where he put a price tag on Donald's wealth, less than $200 million, which I think is in the right ballpark at the time. He lost, and he gave testimony that was very damaging to him, because he just lies about everything. So there may be some hesitance about pursuing matters with Trump, but there should be no hesitance by members of Congress. Members of Congress have congressional immunity, and they should be working on a strategy to keep bringing this up in different contexts and establishing, lie after lie after lie. They should also be making moves to preserve the record so that we don't end up with a disappearance. And let's remember two things. When Jeffrey Epstein was arrested by the Trump administration's Justice Department in his first term, search warrants were executed on his properties. And we know from the inventory logs and things in the public record that among the things they found were huge lists of people. Doesn't mean that they were clients of his. I never spoke to Jeffrey Epstein, but had I done so, I would expect my name would be in there. And also, what the record strongly suggests is photographic evidence of grown men engaged in sex acts with underage girls. The language is the language of simply making an inventory, but boy, is it suggestive. And if I'm correct that Epstein's real business was extortion, then that would make absolutely perfect sense. But keep this story going. People are watching this show. When your congressperson shows up, even if your congressperson is a Democrat who gets this, what the issues are, bring it up. Encourage them to keep pressing these issues. Don't let this go away.
I want to talk to you about the politics of it here in a second, but I wanted you to read this comment, which I think is insightful. Karen Combs says, if the letter was fake, that's the Wall Street Journal published letter, the birthday card letter. If the letter was fake, wouldn't they fake something clearer and something that just looks like a note and not some weird script type writing? Is someone protecting Maxwell in prison, Karen asks.
Well, apparently the Justice Department is sending somebody to talk to
that. Not just somebody; it's Blanche, who was Trump's old attorney. David, he's the number 2 at the Justice Department.
Right. And Ghislaine Maxwell is in a position to absolutely tell what's going on here. She's also in a position to be pardoned by Trump.
Exactly.
If she were pardoned by Trump, the way that would backfire, she could call before a congressional committee, and let's assume the Democrats get control in the next election, which is not certain. They could put her under oath, and because she's not subject to any charges anymore, either answer the questions or we're going to jail you for refusal to testify, and we can prosecute you for prosecute you for that. But the government, the Trump,
yeah. Not to interrupt, but to interrupt, sorry. But that deal you're talking about, or that conversation you're talking about, that Blanche is going to now have with Ghislaine Maxwell, it seems to me, David, that's behind closed doors. They can kind of choreograph what she's going to say, dry clean it of anything that could be particularly damaging to Trump, and then in return for that then public testimony, I guess, she might get what? A pardon, a modification of a pardon seems like it might be a bridge too far, but some kind of modification of
clemency, release for time served. There are a bunch of things they can do, and at the same time, there can be a subtle series of implied threats that even if you had the tape, you can't show they were actual threats. I mean, we're not talking about unsophisticated bumpkin lawyers here. We're talking about very sophisticated Manhattan lawyers, Blanche among them. So it's just, I think it's absolutely crucial to keep this going. I hope some of the young women who are now middle-aged will work up the courage to speak and provide more documentation and evidence. I hope you can get Julie Brown of the Miami Herald on your show.
She's Hall of Fame for her work.
The most astonishingly dedicated work on this case. And we really, I mean, think about this, Ron. Much as I think having J.D. Vance in the White House would be its own nightmare, do Americans really want to have an accused child rapist? And that's what Trump is. He is an accused child rapist. They want to have an accused child rapist in the White House? Do they not want to know, was he or wasn't he? If Trump is as innocent as a 12-year-old girl, why wouldn't he be eager to put the records out there? And by the way, you mentioned just before I came on the Martin Luther King stuff. I'm reminded of what the White House tapes from Lyndon Baines Johnson's presidency showed. Hoover had a tape recording of Martin Luther King with some woman having sex, not his wife. And Johnson's response was something along the lines of, "Oh, Edgar, nobody has ever heard of the minister sleeping with a woman in the choir."
I didn't know that story. That's great. I want to ask you the last thing about essentially the 3D chess politically. So Congress goes home early because they don't want to have to vote on the Epstein file.
Are they actually done that now, or are they still just talking?
No, that's the plan. But that seems to be the plan. They've kind of lined up those chess pieces. Then, as you say, I guess it's just public outcry that keeps it alive because the congressional component is gone. And on some level, Trump then just lets it fade. I mean, he sues the Wall Street Journal. That he's doing a lot of things. That's why I was saying he's flailing, David. He's doing a lot of things that sort of vault it back up to the top of the headlines as opposed to letting it fade.
Yeah, this is the only issue I think that can force him to resign or result in his arrest. Nothing else is going to do that I can see any sign of. But I don't think this is a survivable issue. If it's so, while Congress is out of session, those Republicans who are willing to hold town hall meetings, and there's not many of those, they should be confronted by their constituents, including Republicans, saying, we need to know, is Donald Trump a child rapist? And don't use euphemisms. Don't beat around the bush. When some Congress member says, well, I think that's kind of strong, you say, oh, really? You think sex with a 13-year-old girl is anything other than rape? Are you going to defend congressmen having sex with a 12 or 13-year-old girl? We're not talking about a 12 or 13-year-old boy or 14-year-old boy. We're talking about a grown man. And I think the Republicans really need to be pressed on this issue and not be able to run away. And that's the citizenry. That's ordinary folks, people listening to this show, your friends, other people you know. Keep this issue alive because it matters.
I want to ask you about, I want to pivot about something we were asked about on this show, and I promised that I would ask you about it. It's related to economics and sort of the tariff policy, which seems chaotic and inflationary, et cetera. Without getting into all the X's and O's, we kind of know the broad strokes of it. Why hasn't that shown up in the economy more, was the question that is being asked, and it likely will. When will it?
Well, so the tariffs that have been imposed illegally by Donald Trump, except for very limited circumstances involving national security matters, he doesn't have any power with tariffs. That's a power held by Congress. Just look at Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution. The very reason we created our Constitution was so we could tax ourselves through our Congress, that plus regulating business. Remember, we live in the Second American Republic. The first one, Articles of Confederation government, which had no power to tax, failed. The amount of material that is being imported into the country is not the whole economy. That's number one. Number two, a lot of companies loaded up on goods when they saw this coming, and they've been working through those inventories. But you're starting to see this show up, and it will show up increasingly going forward. Now, there's one other aspect to this is, Trump claims that there are world leaders who called him up and said, "Oh, Mr. President, thank you. We're so grateful, for these tariffs." Nobody did that. That's just complete ridiculous nonsense. But it also tells you something. Donald knows that these countries he wants to put tariffs on, they understand what tariffs are, unlike him, and they know he doesn't have the power to really do this. They can take him to court. Their customers can take him to court and get the illegally imposed tariffs back. And so they have no motive. Now, if Congress starts to move on tariffs, that would be a very different matter. But you are going to start to see this happen with prices. Prices ticked up a little bit in the most recent month. It's the trend line that you want to look at. And because a tariff is ultimately almost always paid by the consumer. An importer could say, all right, we're going to take a narrower profit margin to maintain our market share. Then the importer makes a smaller profit, and their business is therefore less successful and less stable. But be patient. It's going to show up, and you're also going to start seeing it show up more in food prices. There's plenty of video out there right now about crops rotting in the field. Where I live in Western New York, we are a major apple producer. There's 5 families that have a basically lawful cartel in the apple business. And I'm looking forward to seeing whether they have the people they need to harvest those apples. What's going to happen with the crops that are coming in right now? Strawberries from Watsonville and Santa Cruz County, they come in all year long. They come from Mexico. We get vast amounts of our produce from California. California is grossly disproportionate producer. And with the raids, there are going to be damages.
Well,
we've already seen some dairy farmers saying they're having trouble maintaining their herds of cows because they don't have workers.
So you see agriculture that really can be hobbled by this. I don't know what the fix is for this. David, I remember under Trump, season 1, when he was first in 2016, winning that election, he imposed tariffs that did affect farmers. And as I recall, and it was a mess also, although not as advertised a mess as this seems to be.
It cost you and me and everybody else $28 billion in subsidies to make up for the lost market.
Thank you. That's exactly what I was going to get to.
$28 to the farmers who would prefer to grow crops than get welfare. And it turned out to be a huge boon to Brazilian soybean farmers who now dominate the market with China. China's a huge consumer of soybeans. And it also benefited the family of Elaine Chao, Senator Mitch McConnell's wife, because they are in the dry bulk cargo business, and it's their ships that used to go from the U.S. to China with soybeans. Now they go from Brazil to China with soybeans.
That was wonderful. That's exactly what I wanted to ask you about. And I'm just wondering how the bailouts are going to work this time. As you said, those last bailouts are close to $30 billion. And it's to farmers who want to farm. They don't want to get bailouts. So, this cost could be even higher. And just on the handful of people who control so much, 9 households control 15% of the wealth in Silicon Valley. This is something that you talk about all the time, wealth inequality. It's astounding.
That's a story that broke this morning in the San Jose Mercury, where I started out when I was a teenager as a front page staff writer. 9 households own 70% of the wealth in Silicon Valley. 9. Now, this is what I've been warning people about for 30 years since I started documenting how government policies are creating this highly concentrated wealth, which has, in economic terms, no utility. That is, if you've got $10 billion, having $11 billion makes no difference whatsoever to you, unless you're a deal maker. If you're Carl Icahn, you're buying and selling companies, yeah, it makes a difference, but not to anybody else. And we now have billionaires in the centibillionaire class, right? Hundreds of billions of dollars. And yet we have all these families who depend on food banks, who are on Medicaid, who are house poor, whether they're renters or they're buyers. They're spending 30, 40, 50% of their income. And that money does not and cannot trickle down. The reason for that is people with moderate incomes spend all their money. They don't have any savings. The United Way movement about 11, 12 years ago, I was the first person to write about this, developed a new poverty measure called ALICE, asset limited. You don't have any savings, asset limited, income constrained. You're not making very much money. You have a low salary or wages, employed. So you're working, but you don't have any savings and you have barely enough money to pay your bills, and maybe you don't have enough to pay your bills. For a married couple with kids who need daycare, they have for every county in the country, but in the urban counties where that's most of the money is made in this country, it takes close to $90,000 to escape poverty, to be able to have a stable economic life. And if you don't have children in daycare and there's still 4 of you, it's $80,000. The official government poverty measure for a family of 4 is less than $30,000. I talk to people all the time who are telling me how strained their budget is. And then I find out, yeah, they both work and together they make like $120,000. They don't have any savings. And there are some things I could point out to them that they could save money doing. But that really tells you how the economy has changed. And it's exactly what I warned about in my books, Free Lunch, Perfectly Legal, and The Fine Print, and my book Divided, an anthology, and hundreds and hundreds of articles and columns I've written in the last 30 years. It is government policy that is creating this. And one thing I really want your audience to know, and I know we need to wind up, is many companies and some individuals who control companies have turned the corporate income tax into a profit center. When I broke that story 25 years ago, people called the New York Times and wrote letters and said, who is this crazy person from an insane asylum? And then Congress ordered a study. They produced a 3-volume, 1,800-page report that showed I was exactly right. And the reason is this: you make a profit, and this year the tax rate on your profit is $1 billion. And you defer that tax for 30 years into the future. You don't have to pay it for 30 years. And there's all sorts of mechanisms to do this. You just got a $1 billion zero-interest loan from the government. A zero-interest loan from the government. When you pay it back in 30 years, you're really paying back not $1 billion, but about 300 million or so, based on historic inflation rates. And in the meantime, you invested the $1 billion and you've turned it into $3, $4, $5 billion, but you still only owe the tax on the first one. And then the earnings you made, you defer those too. And twice now, Congress under Republican presidents, George W. Bush, and then in Trump's first term, passed a law lowering the tax that would be paid on this deferred money if it was held overseas, where most of it is, where they only paid a quarter of the tax that was owed. Instead of 35%, you'd pay 8.25%. You got a 75% discount, and you didn't even have to bring the money back to the United States. All you had to do was pay the tax. You could keep the money offshore. The reason that you and I and everybody else isn't doing better isn't some failing of ours. It isn't some weakness in the American economy. It's a Congress that is approving all of these measures, and state legislatures approving these measures, and city councils and county boards of supervisors, or whatever your county legislative group is called, putting in place policies that take from you, usually silently and subtly, and give to the very rich. So when you go to a big box retailer, there's a very good chance the sales tax money does not go to the police and the schools and the library. It is kept by the owners of that store to pay for building that store until the bonds that were used to pay for it are paid off. In 20 states, politically connected companies get to keep forever the state level, not federal, but state level income taxes withheld from their workers' paychecks. It's a story I broke in 2011, I think. 20 states. And I mean, we're talking about big companies, and some of them are foreign companies like Mitsubishi and Continental Tire, which is a German firm. But News Corp was one of them. So people really need to pay attention to these policies. And they also should be asking, why, if our federal debt is a problem, as Trump and the Republicans keep saying, are we borrowing more money to finance tax cuts for the richest people in America?
Well, the CBO just published this new analysis. Yeah, right. 3.4 trillion added to the debt over the next 10 years.
That's just in addition to all the already scheduled increase in the federal debt. That's just an add-on. That's a cherry, a huge cherry,
right, on
the top of a very ugly cake.
You see the bankruptcy of these calls for, they're just a total philosophical bankruptcy, these calls for, restraint, fiscal restraint. It's just absurd. We're way over time. I love our conversations. And it's when you talk about this stuff, you have written about it for years. I mean, these books, which I'm going to link to under this video, if you click through, it's all here. I mean, this has been going on. It's been a slow moving train, but wow, it's picked up a lot of speed lately,
And it's going to get worse because of those rules concentrating that wealth and reinforcing that wealth and not taxing it. I want people to be wealthy. I want people to prosper. Just pay your damn taxes. Don't go rent a congressional vote so that you can escape paying your taxes. Make, what Bill Gates said, my fortune, if we had a proper tax system, would be 1/3 the size it is.
Right on. Thanks, David. See you next week.
Take care.
David Cay Johnston. Bravo.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Who's Mark Thompson?
Feels great.
When they raided Mar-a-Lago, God didn't like that.
I am going to just follow up quickly to ask you a question. What is the cost of living in Silicon Valley said to need to be, if I can...
You mean how much do you need? How much do you need?
More awkwardly, yeah, exactly. The cost of living in Silicon Valley has risen. What do you have to earn to afford an apartment as a renter in Silicon Valley? How much do you need to earn annually to afford to be a renter in Silicon Valley?
I'm going to say $175,000 a year.
$175,000, says Kim. Let's see what other people think. In the $250,000, says Liz L. $300,000, says Champagne.
Does it say what the size of your family is?
It doesn't. It just, I think it's an average.
Okay.
Renters have to earn what to afford an apartment, it says. Yeah. It's the highest rent in the nation, they say. I'm seeing 500,000. It's not 500,000. 120, says Jim Slayton. 07 says 500,000. How much do you need to earn to afford an apartment as a renter in Silicon Valley? The answer: $136,532 a year to afford an apartment in the Silicon Valley area, San Jose is number 4 in impossibly unaffordable cities worldwide. The other 3. This is a good question, too.
Hey, Grandpa, remember the good old days when people made $100,000 and they were rich?
What is the most unaffordable city in the world? If San Jose is number 4, what is the most? I'll give you the top 3, but what is number 1? Anybody? What's the most?
We're talking big cities?
Yeah. You can't say like Tiburon or Belvedere. That's not
Atherton, that's not going to work out?
Yeah, that's not a city.
I'm going for New York City.
New York City, says Ken. I don't know what other guesses there have been. A lot of people in New York, San Francisco, London I'm seeing. I'm also seeing Dubai.
Some Tokyo.
The answer is Hong Kong.
Okay.
The top 3 most unaffordable cities: Hong Kong number 1, Sydney number 2, and Vancouver number 3.
Vancouver?
Yeah.
I thought Canada was supposed to be more affordable.
Well, it's friendlier. It's unaffordable with a kind of a friendly chocolatey shell.
Okay.
Yeah. The revelations about Silicon Valley continue, but I mean, all you need to know is that a lot of people who live there just can't afford it. The pain index is high, So that was just a follow-up on what we were talking about with David Cay Johnston. Hey, Tony, today, do me a favor, please, and link to his books, if you will, or at least, thank you very much, because I really would love people to see that. Those books are really great. And he's been talking about this for years. Viewfinder's president says something, and I went to buy. The only difference is San Jose has American roaches. Hong Kong has the Asian kind. Oh, that's very good. Thank you for that distinction. Yeah. Really something special. I have Jefferson Graham waiting for tech stuff on Tech Tuesdays. And I have a couple of other loose items and things to get to. I'm going to talk about Neuralink. Speaking of tech stuff, I'll try to get to it after Jeff. I don't like to make Jeff wait. He's kind of a diva, can really lose it. Starts throwing stuff. And you have that sort of, soft exterior. He just seems like he's kind of, he's sort of this wonderfully affable guy. That's not the way he is at all. No. He's a total prima donna is what he is. Anyway. All right, smash the like button like a boss if you would. And
smash it with your iron rod.
You can subscribe to the show for free. Hit the subscribe button. Also hit the notification bell. You'll know when we have another video. You have to make sure your subscription, it's free, but YouTube unsubscribes people occasionally. They'll shed.
They do?
Yeah.
What happens with that?
I'm learning. I don't know, but I'm learning about this stuff. We could ask Jeff about that. How does it work, Tony?
It kind of like if you don't respond enough times to a notification, then they're like, we unsubscribed you. It's fine. So it's kind of one of those things.
Yeah, it's like when you subscribe to something and you don't open any of their emails, Gmail will say, do you want to, you haven't opened up an email from this place in some time. Do you want to unsubscribe? But YouTube will just unsubscribe you.
Yeah.
So thank
sometimes
you
they just preemptively, it's like, we don't think you're going to watch us, so we'll take it away from you anyway. It's kind of.
Yeah, exactly. So, they do a lot of
I don't like that. No.
Yeah, that's not cool. Let me just have a cup of coffee. And this is the Mark Thompson Show mug, which I will make sure Jeff has one. I really want to make sure he's got one. We could try ignoring it, sir, is this particular mug, but each one has...
we could try ignoring it, sir.
You could have your, no phrase from the show or any number of phrases from the show. Anyway, I love delaying. I wish we could delay longer.
Let me just tell you that Sandy in Redwood City said she's fueled by the lion's mane this morning.
Yeah, baby.
Yeah.
Lion's Mane coffee. Again, if you haven't yet, do go to CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. Pick up the coffee of champions, the coffee of patriots, the coffee of freedom, the coffee of liberty, the coffee of vision, the coffee of clarity. I could go on. Really? Could you? Keep going. The coffee of optimism, the coffee of the future. CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. It's not just the coffee that I have found this clarity blend, and I'm crazy for it, man. I've got a problem. So check it out. It is really something special. And use a 10% discount. Oh, yes.
Discount is Mark T, no spaces.
Yes,
Throw it in there
10%
at the code
discount
box.
on everything. So get the cold brew, get the tea, get the spices, whatever you want, and do be part of the crew that has discovered CoachellaValleyCoffee.com, organic and sourced from women-owned farms. CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. Again, Mark T at checkout for 10% off. So,
The Mark Thompson Show.
this guy, the longtime writer on technology for USA Today, before he quit and flipped them the finger, said, F you, man, I'm out of here. I want to do my own thing. He's the great Jefferson Graham, everyone.
You kept me waiting.
That's my boy. That's
How
my
you
boy.
doing?
Yeah.
And I also want to know what happened to the pictures I was supposed to see this week.
What happened to the pictures I was supposed to see, Jeff?
I do have a mug, by the way, Mark. It's not in this room, but I have
good.
the black mark, the black mug, not the
That's
white
a collector's
mug.
item. That's a collector's item.
Pretty
Yeah.
cool. I couldn't read what did you say there's never been anything like it on the mug?
I should have said, I don't know. There's
never been anything like this.
I mean, that is on some of the mugs. This particular one says we could try ignoring it, sir. That's what this would, but I mean there are any number of sayings on any number of the mugs. So you can go to getmarkmerch.com and pick out your own, or go without any saying at all.
We could try ignoring it, sir.
So anyway,
How about smash this mug like a boss? What do you think of that?
this is why you're not really on the show every day, because of ideas like that one.
Who is having that conversation?
Well, I'm just saying, I like that we're brainstorming. Okay, let me leave it at that. I like that you're thinking. All right.
Okay, thank you. So what I want to talk about today is our old friend Stephen Colbert, which is, I'm sure you've discussed many times. But one of the interesting things about 2025, 2026, the time that we live in, is that you can get a show that's canceled and you could just take it somewhere else. Who would know better about that than you? Okay.
Right.
And I don't know if you've gone over this on the show about the various options that he would have. It's a whole, you don't have a band. You do have a live audience, but they're not in front of you. And so I think your costs were a lot less. The places that he could go would be Substack, YouTube. Those would be the top two. If he's just going to say, I'm going to take the show. And then, maybe put the show on HBO. I'm sure you've thought about it. Where do you, Mark, think the best place for Colbert to keep the show alive would be?
Well,
and what have you learned since you did this?
Well, I would say, and this is interesting with you because you know a little bit more about what places might be better spots for him, but a stripped down version, sort of along the lines of what the Colbert people did during COVID-19. You could do that in all the places you just mentioned. But what I'd say is that if you want a sense of the big late night show that you've made number one, you couldn't really do that on Substack, could you, Jeff? I mean, it doesn't feel like the right platform. You'd almost have to do it on a YouTube type platform. YouTube has, I think, the platform that would allow you to produce the show in the same way it's being produced, and then it would show up on YouTube. The part that becomes problematic, I think, is the financial part, right? You still need to somehow pay what is a pretty big budget. You employ a lot of people. You could still have the band if you wanted them. You could still have bookers, producers, but it's expensive.
Yeah, I don't see a band. You could start with a stripped down monologue, a daily monologue. He could just do a monologue and put that out. I figured he could bring in about 700,000 a year if he just did the monologue. Okay. I don't see the late night show being replicated anywhere else because it's of another time. It really is. And unless HBO wants to buy it. Now, HBO has Bill Maher. There's no ban there, but they're spending money on that show. Did Colbert need to spend $100 million a year on producing something like this? Could it be done on a shoestring? Not a shoestring, but certainly a more affordable budget with some producers, some bookers. I hate to compare him to Megyn Kelly, but Megyn Kelly's on the air every day on YouTube with a big produced show. And
is that right? I don't watch Megyn Kelly. So like, what's the kind of show that you see him? What part of Megyn Kelly's show might feel like it would fit with Colbert?
Not the Don Lemon show. I mean, not sitting in his apartment talking on Zoom, but you could take it up a few notches. It just would be down a lot of notches from what he has now.
So you still have a studio, is what you're saying, but it's not. It's just a different.
It's not the Ed Sullivan Theater,
sure,
but it certainly could be a soundstage. It could be, or they could build the soundstage in his apartment if he wanted to do that.
Well, I mean, he could share a stage with others who likely are going to end up in the same fate. I mean, I think Jon Stewart, right, The Daily Show might end up in the same place. I don't know what the economics on all these things is. Now, The Daily Show is a different kind of show. It's a comedy parody show. Those correspondents are all really talented. I think any one of them could host that show, and it's lamentable that all of these great talents are going away, and all of this great writing, and all of this great parody, and it seems to really be endangered. By leave aside the politics, just the economic models don't support it anymore.
But think about what does Colbert really need to get to his audience? He needs to do a monologue. Okay, so he could sit at a desk and do a monologue. That's not going to be very expensive. He needs writers to help him write the monologue. So that's not cheap, but it's not as much as paying for a band and paying for music rights. Does he need to interview celebrities? That's easy enough to do, whether it be done remotely or whether it be done, come into my studio and sit with me. That's not expensive. So I don't know where that $100 million, whether it's paying for the Ed Sullivan Theater and paying for the music rights and paying for all those union grips. You don't need 5 cameras to do a talk show, as you know. Right?
This $100 million to which you've referred a couple of times, and Kim had also talked about the numbers that CBS was talking about. I don't buy them. You think it costs $100 million to put on the Colbert Show? I don't believe that. I think that number is wrong.
It's hard to believe, but I think when you multiply 5 times a week and everybody's salary now, I think Colbert was making $15 million. So now we can just go from $85 million for the production. That seems awfully high to me. I know the number that they're all giving out is that they're losing $40 million a year. And if they're losing $40 million a year, if I'm losing $40 million a year, I'm going to sit down and say, what can we do to stop this? We're not going to lose $40 million anymore, right?
Sure. And just on the numbers, since we're kicking them around, in the 18 to 49 demographic, a key target for advertisers, Tony's bringing this up, Jimmy Kimmel Live slightly edged out The Late Show with 220,000 viewers compared to Colbert's 219,000. I'm a huge Kimmel fan. I think Kimmel he's my favorite. And I'm sadly fearing the same fate for Jimmy and for, I think they're all going the same way. You said it. I mean, late night TV is kind of over the way it was. Now, what incarnation of late night TV or of this kind of format might survive? And the answer is a stripped down version for sure. Might you still have an audience? I mean, I think you still could have a small audience. You don't have to have the Ed Sullivan Theater. Clearly, as you say, that's going to go away, right?
Yeah, and you've worked in TV. You've been in the studio audience. You've been there with the people. I assume it's not free to just bring everybody in. That must cost some money. You have to have security guards and other people there. and insurance.
Yeah. Oh,
right?
well, I mean, they're audience coordinators, and you're right. There are all kinds of ushers and security and everything else you need when you have an audience. You don't have to have an audience, but I think for comedy, an audience is helpful of some kind. You want an audience. It doesn't have to be, again, all those people.
Well, Bill Maher does which is an 80% of it is a political talk show. And then at the beginning, he does a monologue. I'm sure that if he's given the option of doing the monologue to the silent room versus having an audience, he's going to want the audience, right?
Yeah. These guys play to the audience so much. But I really, as I say, I don't know how you get these numbers. It sounds to me like, first, that 15 million, yeah, you could knock that baby down. If he's really making $15 million a year, oh my God. And that's an immense number. It's incredible. To me, it's unjustifiable. Well, clearly it's unjustifiable. I mean, the arithmetic doesn't support it.
But the other two guys make that too. So at least...
No, it's not specific to Colbert. I'm saying the salaries are bloated beyond belief.
Right.
Yeah. But I mean, look, let me be clear. Everybody deserves whatever money they bring in. If you're putting asses in the seats, then you deserve 15 million. I don't, it's just like what U2 makes to do a concert. It's whatever they are bringing in terms of tickets. If they're $500 a seat or whatever it may be, then they deserve this incredible number. I'm just saying that the more I look at these numbers, I mean, the numbers that Tony just put up, they don't justify that kind of salary. So I believe that the Paramount deal, they wanted the green light from the Trump administration. This does go back to politics. The timing of this, the announcement of this, the way in which it was done, all of it plays to the Trump administration. But having said that, the economics, as you've said, are just not there anymore. And so it has to be reimagined. And you could still take some of the jewels of what you do, as you say, the monologue writers, and then some kind of stripped down version of what you're doing, lose the band then, or go with a three-piece combo, small audience, and you can have a really nice version of the same show.
Yeah, I mean, I could see Colbert on YouTube doing monologue 1 to a guest.
Good. Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
Right?
Sure. I mean, I'm sure it's painful because it's a really
But Mark,
it's a point of pride that they have.
You could have done one guest and you chose not to. You have multiple guests. You keep things moving along.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think I can be spoken of in the same category as these people, but I hear you. The apparently, Kim just pushed me this. Stephen Colbert turned Monday's episode of The Late Show into a star-studded mocking of CBS's decision to end his long-running program. He invited Weird Al Yankovic and Lin-Manuel Miranda on stage for a surprise musical number aimed at cheering up fans who were bummed about the show ending.
Yes,
they performed Coldplay's Viva La Vida in a tongue-in-cheek nod to the band's recent viral Jumbotron moment. Did you see it?
I did. And in the audience was Seth and Jon Stewart and Anderson Cooper and Andy Cohen.
And Jimmy Fallon. Yeah.
Yeah, and Jimmy Fallon. Yeah.
Also, Adam Sandler. And
Right.
I mean, that there is a collective sense of unfairness about just the environment we're in now, and also a sense of looking back wistfully at a different time, right? Where
The crazy thing is CBS gave him 10 months. 10 months to blast them every night. I mean,
well,
right?
Jeff, you know why they gave him 10 months. What's the reason?
Contract?
Exactly. Yeah, right. Yes. They had no choice. I mean, they would have liked to have said, hey, today's your last day, But they would have done a KGO. At KGO, they didn't give us even 1 day. And I asked KGO, for those who don't know, our radio station was a very big, powerful radio station in San Francisco. And I was the last person on the air there because they decided to close up the whole station. They were turning the station off, in effect. And we were doing well. The whole thing was weird economics and all the rest. But anyway, I begged them to let me say something they told me about this I think it was like 8 minutes, maybe 6 minutes before I went on. And I said, please let me tell the audience what's happening here. And I said, I'll even, because they said, no, we don't want to do that. Just follow this. And we want you to do this. You're going to go on like a normal show. And after 15 minutes, you're just going to give the call letters. And that's the end of it. And I thought, I said, it's not going to make sense to anybody. I said, please, I won't say anything disparaging about the company. I'll spin it as a positive. There's going to be a whole new day starting at KGO, and new stations going to come here. I'll say whatever you want. I'll spin it positively, but I have to tell the audience we owe it to them. We have a legacy in this community. And I said it to them just like that, but not quite as emotional, because I didn't want them to think I was going to go over the top with something emotional. And they said, no, we can't just do it this way. This is the way corporate wants it and whatever. And that was the equivalent of, the same situation. But Stephen Colbert, he has 10 months on his contract, and they can't cancel him, even though they'd like to say, no, go on, and we're just going to turn the switch and turn you off. They want to do that, but they can't. And so, as you say, you're right. 10 months are going to go, and each month is going to be a bigger example of CBS, Trump, et cetera, being pilloried by Colbert and his writers. I think you're 100% right about that.
Yeah, and the monologue last night was brutal. So it was very funny, but it was really strong. And that was last night. So what will tonight bring?
Right. Again, every night will get worse. I got to go back, and now so much tune in now for Colbert. I think here it is. Expect Colbert is going to roast the king, and I do think the roasting is going to get hotter and hotter. So it's very intriguing, Jefferson Graham, the question as to where he'll end up and where these people will end up. And
should we ask the audience to vote? Anybody, Netflix, HBO, Substack, where do you think Colbert will go?
Yeah, that is that's a good one. I'd be curious what the audience thinks. I'm more curious about what you think, because you're the tech guy and you know all of these platforms.
I think it's HBO.
Yeah.
It just seems to make the most sense.
Yeah. And it's amazing to me that Bill Maher has survived as long. Right. I guess that's a stripped down show. It's kind of easy to do. Pretty much you're what they call above the line costs, where you're paying your talent, the star. That probably is a cost that continues to escalate. But it's probably getting cheaper to employ everybody else, fewer and fewer people, robocams. You don't need people involved at every stage of the production. As you say, it's basically a monologue, and then it could be any talk show on CNN or anywhere.
Right. It's a monologue, it's an interview, and then it's a panel, and then he does an editorial at the end. So I assume producers, writers, bookers, the usual.
Yeah. Apple TV would be cool, says Gordon. Yeah.
Apple TV asked Jon Stewart what he thinks of Apple TV when they told him, don't mention China because they'll be offended.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Yeah. Be careful. Right. The boss is sometimes pretty unrelenting. Could he go back to Comedy Central, asks Heather Kennedy. No,
Comedy Central is CBS.
Yeah, CBS. This is the problem with mergers. Fewer and fewer places to go. Well, I love this conversation, and I think it's provocative, so thank you, Jefferson Graham. Don't forget, Jeff is the host, creator, producer of Photo Walks TV on YouTube. Always a great watch. Subscribe, check it out, and enjoy. There is a Jeff sitting next to the Cincinnati. This is your tour of Cincinnati?
Yes.
Yeah. Look at you with your Indiana Jones hat. Very adventurous.
Mark, television. Once I put it on my head, it was stuck, right? I couldn't take it off.
That's right. You'll look crazy. Anyway, love that you stopped by. Thanks, my friend. Check him out again. Photo Walks TV. Thanks, Jefferson Graham.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, my friend. Very, very well done.
The Mark Thompson Show.
And with that, we must wrap up. I have sick cats that I have to take care of, and they're only getting sicker, and it's only getting sadder, but I'm so glad that I'm here for them. And I just have a vet appointment that I have to make. I know this is real life. So I'm excited about tomorrow, aren't I, Kim?
You are very excited about tomorrow because John Rothman will be on the show, as well as Belinda Weymouth.
Yes, and there's some pretty big news in the world of the planet that I want to get to with Belinda Weymouth. The depressed Canadian with a live super chat says Vancouver, and to an extent Sydney's affordability crises, are related to foreign money laundering in real estate investments. So there are tons of luxury apartments that are empty, but are owned by overseas money. Wow, that's fascinating. Thank you, depressed Canadian. This is in relation to affordability crisis in San Jose. We talked about the most expensive cities, and Vancouver is number 3, third most expensive city in the world. Wow, that's extraordinary. And so many Americans, who are considering fleeing America now, look at Canada and Vancouver, which is such a great city, but may not make any sense given the affordability crisis. They're Barry with a $5 super sticker. Thank you, Barry, for supporting this show.
Big
you can be a Patreon and PayPal supporter, just like all the other cool kids. Every month, you throw us a little something to help keep us on the air. What do you think is going to come out of anything Maxwell has to talk about with the DOJ, asks Randy. Nothing. All she wants at this point is a pardon. I'd put that in the absolutely true category. There's no question about that. They're not looking to learn any new information. They're looking, as we were talking, they're looking at choreographing her testimony and statements going into the future. Way too heady, says Mark T, is the wholesome but still cool uncle I never had. Thank you for that.
I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah. Thank you very, very much. Way too heady.
It's true. If Mark calls me and my kids see the phone screen and I'm not near my phone, they scream, "Mark Thompson's on the phone. Mark Thompson's on the phone."
Let it always be that way.
Yeah.
Let it always be that way. I am a big fan of your kids. And Teacher Laurie says, if you haven't seen Jon Stewart's monologue from last night's Daily Show, you should. It's on YouTube if you don't get Comedy Central.
Worth it from the first second he comes on to the last. Great.
Oh, great. I'm excited. Well, check it out. R.I.P. Ozzy Osbourne in the moment with Paul Sisler II. In the moment with a $10 super chat to the show says, Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath, R.I.P. Ozzy. Tony's a big Ozzy fan too, aren't you, Tony?
Hell fucking yeah, I am.
Yeah.
Thanks, Tony.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to suck, man.
Life sucks. Death sucks worse. Rest in peace, Ozzy. A lot of people with the Ozzy feeling. Really sad.
This is like significant day, like for me. Like this is a loss, man. This is my childhood. Oh no. Yeah. It's like when the Ultimate Warrior died.
Yeah. So right.
No.
Yeah. For you, this is so sad. Anyway, so it goes. There he is, Ozzy in his prime. Tony's got a shot of him up there. Wow. Well, it's a sad thing.
Sorry, Tony.
Yeah. I'm really bummed for you, pal. But
all those Ozfests, man, it's good fucking shows.
Yeah. It's a what do you say? Guy who was a cultural touchstone also. It's funny, just because of the popularity of the Osbourne show. I mean, he got a whole second and even third
wind.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
I mean, let's be honest though, he outlived everyone's thought how long he was going to go.
True.
Sadly, but man.
Yeah, it isn't true. It's true indeed.
I'm Shadow Stevens for the Mark Thompson Show. Bye-bye.
Tony will update us on the new Bill Handel show studio tomorrow.
I heard no calls this morning, so I think it went just fine.
Thanks, everyone. Until tomorrow. Bye-bye.